Chapter 4 The Blue Squirrel was one teetering step up from the 5 moons. Eve had a cautious affection for it. There were times she even enjoyed the noise, the press of bodies, and the ever-changing costumes of the clientele. Most of the time she enjoyed the stage show. The featured singer was one of the rare people Eve considered a genuine friend. The friendship might have had its roots in Eve's arrest of Mavis Freestone several years earlier, but it had flowered. Nonetheless, Mavis might have gone straight, but she would never go ordinary. Tonight, the slim, exuberant woman was screeching out her lyrics against the scream of trumpets, the brass waved by a 3-piece female band on the hall off-screen backdrop. That, and the quality of the single wine Eve had risked were enough to make her eyes water. For tonight's show, Mavis's hair was a stunning emerald green. Eve knew Mavis preferred jewel colors. She continued the theme with the single swatch of glistening sapphire material she had somehow draped over herself to cover one generous breast and her crotch. Her other breast was decorated with shimmering stones, with a strategically placed silver star over the nipple. One misplaced stud or swatch, and the blue squirrel could be fined for exceeding its license. The proprietors weren't willing to pay the hefty fee for nude class. When Mavis whirled, Eve saw that the singer's heart-shaped butt was similarly decorated on each slim cheek. Just, she mused, within the limits of the law. The crowd loved her. When she stepped from the stage after her set, it was to thunderous applause and drunken cheers. Patrons in the private smoking booth stomped fists enthusiastically on their tiny tables. "How do you sit down in that?" Eve asked when Mavis arrived at her booth. Slowly, carefully, and with great discomfort. Mavis demonstrated, then let out a sigh. "What did you think of the last number? A real crowd pleaser." "I wrote it." "No shit." Eve hadn't understood a single word, but pride swelled. "Nonetheless, that's great, Mavis. I'm odd. I might have a shot at a recording contract." Beneath the glitter on her face, Mavis's cheeks flushed. "And I got a raise." "Well, here's to it." In toast, Eve lifted her glass. "I didn't know you were coming in tonight." Mavis punched her code into the menu and ordered bubble water. She had to baby her throat for the next set. "I'm meeting someone, Rourke." Mavis's eyes, currently green, shone. "Is he coming?" "I'll have to do that last number again. He's in Australia." "I'm meeting Nadine first." Mavis's disappointment at the opportunity to impress Rourke shifted quickly to surprise. "You're meeting a reporter?" "On purpose." "I can trust her." Eve lifted a shoulder. "I can use her, if you say so." "Hey, you think maybe she'd do a piece on me?" "Not for worlds." Would Eve have extinguished the light in Mavis's eyes. "I'll mention it." "Decent." "Listen, tomorrow's my night off. Want to catch some dinner or hang someplace, if I can manage it." "But I thought you were seeing that performance artist." "The one with the pet monkey." Flicked him off. Mavis illustrated by brushing a finger over her bare shoulder. "He was just too static." "Gotta go." She slid out of the booth, her butt decor making little scrapping sounds. Her emerald hair gleamed in the swirling lights as she edged through the crowd. Eve decided she didn't want to know what Mavis considered too static. When her communicator hummed, Eve pulled it out and punched in her code. Rourke's face filled the menu screen. Her first reaction, unbidden, was a huge, delighted smile. "Lieutenant, I've tracked you down." "Apparently so." She worked on dimming the smile. "This is an official channel, Rourke." "Is it?" His brow lifted. "It doesn't sound like official surroundings." The blue squirrel. "I'm meeting someone." "How's Australia?" "Crowded. With luck I'll be back within 36 hours. I'll find you." "I'm not hard to find." She smiled again. "Obviously." "Listen." To amuse them both, she tilted the unit as Mavis roared into her next set. "She's unique," Rourke managed after several bars. "Give her my best." "I will." "I see you when you get back." "Count on it." "You'll think of me." "Sure." "Safe trip, Rourke." "Eve, I love you." She let out a baffled breath when his image dissolved. Well. Nadine first moved from her position behind Eve's shoulder and slid into the booth opposite. "Wasn't that sweet?" Torn between annoyance and embarrassment, Eve jammed her communicator back in her pocket. "I thought you had more class than to eavesdrop." "Any reporter worth her salary eavesdrops, Lieutenant." "Just like a good cop." Nadine stretched back in the booth. "So, what does it feel like to have a man like Rourke in love with you?" Even if she could have explained it, Eve wouldn't have. Thinking of switching from hard news to the romance channel, Nadine merely held up a hand. then let out a sigh when she scanned the club. "I can't believe you wanted to meet here again. The food's terrible, but the atmosphere." "Nadine, the atmosphere." Mavis hit a piercing note and Nadine shuddered. "Fine. It's your deal." "You got back on planet quickly." "I managed to catch a flash transport." "One of your boyfriends." "Rourke's not a boy." "You're telling me." "Anyway, a broken bar." Nadine waved that away. She was obviously tired and a little lagged. "I've got to eat, even if it kills me." She scanned the menu and settled dubiously on the stuffed shells supreme. "What are you drinking?" "Number 54. It's supposed to be a Chardonnay." Experimentally, Eve sipped again. "It's at least 3 steps up from horse piss." "I recommend it." "Fine." Nadine programmed her order and sat back again. "I was able to access all the data available on the Towers' homicide on the trip back. Everything the media has broadcast so far." "Morse know you're back?" Nadine's smile was thin and feral. "Oh, he knows. I've got seniority on the crime beat. I'm in. He's out." "And is he pissed?" "Then my mission is a success." "But it's not complete. You promised an exclusive." "And I'll deliver." Eve studied the noodle dish that slid through the serving slot. "It didn't look half bad, under my terms." "Nadine, what I feed you? You broadcast when I give you the light. What else is new?" Nadine sampled the first shell, decided it was nearly palatable. "I'll see that you get more data, and that you get it ahead of the pack. And when you've got a suspect, you'll get the name first." Trusting Eve's word, Nadine nodded as she forked up another shell. "Plus a one-on-one with the suspect and another with you." "I can't guarantee the suspect." "You know I can't," Eve continued before Nadine could interrupt. "The perp has rights to choose his own media, or to refuse it all. The best I can do is suggest, maybe even encourage. I want pictures." "Don't tell me you can't guarantee." "You can find a way to see that I get video of the arrest." "I want to be on the scene." "I'll weigh that in when the time comes." "In exchange, I want everything you have, every tip that comes in, every rumor, every story lead. No broadcast surprises." Nadine slipped pasta between her lips. "I can't guarantee," she said sweetly. "My associates have their own agenda." "What you know, when you know it," Eve said flatly. "And anything that comes out of intra-media espionage." At Nadine's innocent expression, Eve snorted. "Stations spy on stations, reporters spy on reporters. Getting the story on air first is the name of the game." "You've got a good batting average, Nadine, or I wouldn't be bothering with you." "I'll say the same." Nadine sipped her wine. "And for the most part, I trust you, even if you have no taste in wine." "This is barely one step up from horse piss." Eve sat back and laughed. It felt good, it felt easy, and when Nadine grinned in return, they had a deal. "Let me see yours," Nadine requested. "And I'll let you see mine." "The biggest thing I have got," Eve began, "is a missing umbrella." Eve met Feeney at Cicely Towers' apartment at 10 the following morning. One look at his hangdog expression and she knew the news wasn't going to be sunny. "What wall did you hit?" "On the A-link." He waited while Eve disarmed the police security on the door, then followed her inside. She had plenty of transmissions, kept the unit on auto record. "Your tag was on the disc." "That's right. I took it into evidence." "Are you trying to tell me no one contacted her to arrange a meet at the 5 Moons?" "I'm trying to tell you I can't tell you." In disgust, Feeney ran a hand through his wiry hair. "Her last call came in at 11:30. The transmission ended at 11:43. And," she erased the recording, "I can get the times, but that's it." "The communication, audio, video, are zapped." She zapped them, he continued. "From this unit." She erased the call. Eve murmured and began to pace. Why would she do that? She had the unit on auto. That's standard for law enforcers, even for personal calls. But she erased this one because she didn't want any record of who called and why. She turned back. "You're sure nobody tampered with the disc after it was in evidence?" Feeney looked pained, then insulted. "Dallas," was all he said. Okay. So she zapped it before she went out. That tells me she wasn't afraid, personally, but was protecting herself or somebody else. If it had to do with the case, she'd have wanted it on record. She'd have made damn sure it was on record. I'd say so. If it was a snitch, she could have put a lock on it under her private code, but it doesn't make sense to zap it. "We'll check her cases anyway," all the way back. She didn't have to see his face to know Feeney was rolling his eyes. "Let me think," she muttered. She left City Hall at 19:26. That's on her log. And several witnesses saw her. Her last stop was the women's lounge where she freshened up for the evening and chatted with an associate. The associate tells me her mood was calm but upbeat. She'd had a good day in court. Fluence is going up. She laid the groundwork. Taking her out won't change that. He might have thought different. We'll see about that. She didn't come back here. Frowning, Eve scanned the room. She didn't have time, so she went straight of the restaurant and met Hammett. "I've been by there." His story and his time frame check out with the staff. "You've been busy." "Time's passing." The maitre d' called them a cab. A rapid. They were picked up at 21:48. It was starting to rain. In her mind, Eve pictured it. The handsome couple in the back of the cab, chatting, maybe brushing fingertips while the cab zipped uptown with raindrops pattering on the roof. She'd been wearing a red dress and matching jacket, according to their server. Power colors for court that she dressed up with good pearls and silver heels for the evening. The cab dropped her off first. Eve continued. She told Hammett not to get out. Why get wet? She was laughing when she ran for the building, then turned and blew him a kiss. Your report said they were tied. He loved her. More from habit than hunger. She dipped a hand into the bag Feeney held out. Doesn't mean he didn't kill her, but he loved her. According to him, they were both happy with their arrangement. But to broken bars she lifted her shoulders. If he wasn't, and was looking to set up a good alibi, he set a nice romantic, cozy stage. It doesn't work for me, but it's early yet. So, she came up, Eve continued, moving to the door. Her dress is a little damp, so she goes to the bedroom to hang it up. As she spoke, Eve followed the projected route, walking over the lovely rugs into the spacious bedroom with its quiet colors and lovely antique bed. She ordered lights to brighten the area. The police shields on the windows not only frustrated the flybys, but blocked most of the sunlight. To the closet, she said, and pressed the button that opened the long, mirrored sliding doors. She hangs up the suit. Eve pointed to the red dress and jacket, neatly arranged in a wardrobe ordered in sweeps of color. Puts away her shoes, puts on a robe. Eve turned to the bed. A long flow of ivory was spread there, not folded, not neatly arranged as was the rest of the room, but rumpled, as though it had been impatiently tossed. She puts her jewelry in the safe in the side wall of the closet, but she doesn't go to bed. Maybe she goes out to catch the news, to have a nightcap. With Feeney following, Eve went back to the living area. A briefcase, neatly closed, sat on the table in front of the sofa with a single empty glass beside it. She's relaxing, maybe thinking over the evening, rehearsing her court strategy for the next day or her planning her daughter's wedding. Her A-Link beeps. Whoever it was, whatever they tell her, gets her moving. She's settled in for the night, but she goes back to the bedroom. After she's zapped the record, she dresses again. Another power suit. She's going to the West End. She doesn't want to blend, she wants to exude authority, confidence. She doesn't call a cab. That's another record. She decides she'll take the subway. It's raining. Eve moved to a closet tucked into the wall near the front door and pressed it to open. Inside were jackets, wraps, a man's overcoat she suspected was Hammett's, and a fleet of umbrellas in varying colors. She takes out the umbrella she bought to match the suit. It's automatic. Her mind is on her meat. She doesn't take a lot of money, so it's not a payoff. She doesn't call anyone, because she wants to handle it herself. But when she gets to the 5 Moons, nobody meets her. She waits nearly an hour, impatient, checking her watch. She leaves a few minutes after 1. Back into the rain. She's got her umbrella and starts to walk back to the subway. I figure she's steamed. Classy woman, kicking in a dive for an hour for a no-show. Feeney popped another nut. Yeah, steamed would be my take. So, she heads out. It's raining pretty hard. Her umbrella's up. She only gets a few feet. Someone's there, probably been close by all along, waiting for her to come out. Doesn't want to see her inside. Feeney put in. Doesn't want to be seen. Right. They have to talk a couple of minutes according to the time frame. Maybe they argue. Not much of an argument. There isn't time. Nobody's on the street. Ain't nobody who'd pay attention. Anyway, a couple of minutes later, her throat slashed. She's bleeding on the sidewalk. Did he plan to do her all along? Lots of people carry stickers in that area. Thoughtful. Feeney rubbed his chin. Couldn't get premeditated on that by itself. But the timing, the setup, yeah, that's how it shakes down to me. Me, too. One slice. No defensive wounds, so she didn't have time to feel threatened. The killer doesn't take her jewelry, the leather bag, her shoes, or her credits. He just takes her umbrella, and he walks away. Why the umbrella? Feeney wondered. Hell, it's raining. I don't know. An impulse. A souvenir. As far as I can see, it's the only mistake he made. I've got grunts out checking a 10-block area to see if he ditched it. If he ditched it in that area, some cammie heads walking around with a purple parasol. Yeah, a visual of that almost made her smile. How could he be sure she'd zapped the recording? Feeney, he had to be sure. Threat? A paw lives with threats. One like Towers would shake them off like lint, if they were aimed at her. He agreed. She's got kids. He nodded toward the framed holograms. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was a mother. With a frown, Eve walked over to the holograms. Curious, she picked up one of the boy and girl together as young teenagers. A flick of her finger over the back had the audio bubbling out. Hey, big shot. Happy Mother's Day. This will last longer than the flowers. We love you. Oddly disturbed, Eve set the frame down again. They're adults now. They're not kids anymore. Dallas, once a parent, always a parent. You never finished the job. Hers had, she thought. A long time finished. Then I guess my next stop is Marco Angelini. Angelini had offices in Rourke's building on 5th. Eve stepped into the now familiar lobby with its huge tiles and pricey boutiques. The cooing voices of computer guides offered assistance to various locations. She scanned one of the moving maps and, ignoring the glides, hiked her way to the elevators along the south end. The glass tube shot her to the 58th floor, then opened onto solemn gray carpet and blinding white walls. Angelini Exports claimed a suite of 5 offices in this location. After one quick scan, Eve noted that the company was small potatoes in relation to Rourke Industries. Then again, she thought with a tight smile, what isn't? The receptionist in the greeting area showed great respect and not a little nerves at the sight of Eve's badge. She fumbled and swallowed so much Eve wondered if the woman had a cache of illegal substances in her desk drawer. But the fear of cop had her all but shoving Eve into Angelini's office after less than 90 seconds of lag time. Mr. Angelini, I appreciate your time. My sympathies for your laws. Thank you, Lieutenant Dallas. Please sit. He wasn't elegant, as Hammett was, but he was powerful. A small man, solidly built with jet hair combed slickly back from a prominent widow's peak. His skin was a paled, dusky gold, his eyes bright, hard marbles of azure under thick brows. He had a long nose, thin lips, and the glitter of a diamond on his hand. If he was grieving, the former husband of the victim hid it better than her lover had. He sat behind a console-style desk that was smooth as satin. It was absolutely clear but for his still and folded hands. Behind him was a tinted window that blocked the UV rays while letting in the view of New York. You've come about Sicily. Yes, I was hoping you could spare some time now to answer some questions. You have my full cooperation, Lieutenant. Sicily and I were divorced, but we remained partners, in business and in parenthood. I admired and respected her. There was a hint of his native country in his voice, just a whisper of it. It reminded her that, according to his dossier, Marco Angelini spent a large part of his time in Italy. Mr. Angelini, can you tell me the last time you saw or spoke with Prosecutor Towers? I saw her on March 18th, at my home on Long Island. She came to your home? Yes. For my son's 25th birthday. We gave him a party together, using my estate there, as it was most convenient. David, our son, often stays there when he is on the East Coast. You hadn't seen her since that date? No, we were both busy, but we had planned to meet in the next week or two to discuss plans for Irina's wedding. Our daughter. He cleared his throat gently. I was in Europe for most of April. You called Prosecutor Towers on the night of her death? Yes. I left a message to see if we could meet for lunch or drinks at her convenience. About the wedding, Eve prompted. Yes, about Irina's wedding. Had you spoken with Prosecutor Towers since the day of March 18th and the night of her death? Several times. He pulled his fingers apart, linked them again. As I said, we considered ourselves partners. We had the children, and there were a few business interests, including Mercury. Yes, his lips curved ever so slightly. You are a broken bar acquaintance of Rourke's. That's right. Did you and your former wife disagree on any of your partnerships, personally or professionally? Naturally we did. On both. But we learned, as we had been unable to learn during our marriage, the value of compromise. Mr. Angelini, who inherits Prosecutor Towers' interest in Mercury after her death, his brow lifted. I do, Lieutenant. According to the terms of our business contract, there are also a few holdings in some real estate that will revert to me. This was an arrangement of our divorce settlement. I would guide the interests, advise her on investments. Upon the death of one of us, the interests and profits or losses would revert to the other. We both agreed, you see, and trusted that in the end, all either of us had of value would go to our children, and the rest of her estate, her apartment, her jewelry, whatever possessions that weren't part of your agreement, would, I assume, be left to our children. I imagine there would be a few bequests to personal friends or charities. Eve was going to dig quickly to learn just how much Towers had tucked away. Mr. Angelini, you're aware that your ex-wife was intimately involved with George Hammett. Naturally. And this was a broken bar, not a problem? A problem? Do you mean, Lieutenant, did I, after nearly 12 years of divorce, harbor homicidal jealousy for my ex-wife, and did I slice the throat of the mother of my children and leave her dead on the street? In words to that effect, Mr. Angelini. He said something in Italian under his breath. Something, Eve suspected, uncomplimentary. No, I did not kill Cicely. Can you tell me your whereabouts on the night of her death? She could see his jaw tense and noticed the control it took for him to relax it again, but his eyes never flickered. She imagined he could stare a hole through steel. I was at home in my townhouse from 8 o'clock on. Alone? Yes. Did you see or speak with anyone who can verify that? Number. I have 2 domestics, and both were out on their night off, which was why I was home. I wanted quiet and privacy for an evening. You made no calls, received none during the evening. I received a call at about 3 a.m. from Commander Whitney informing me of my wife's death. I was in bed, alone, when the call came in. Mr. Angelini, your ex-wife was in a West End dive at 1 o'clock in the morning. Why? I haven't any idea. No idea at all. Later, when Eve stepped into the glass tube to descend, she beeped Feeney. I want to know if Marco Angelini was in any kind of financial squeeze, and how much that squeeze would have loosened as his ex-wife's sudden death. You smell something, Dallas. Something, she muttered. I just don't know what.